Hi students, thanks for tuning in. You should take a minute before we get going to pat yourself on the back for taking the time to watch this video. It's very studious of you, very responsible. Um, Listen, we're going to talk about stress and health in this video. This should help prepare you for the test in the unit as well as the AP exam. It's about a 10-minute video, I think. So we'll start out with a joke. What did the meditation guru say to his students? You have the right to remain silent. I thought it was cute. Okay, what are we going to talk about? Let's see. We are going to talk about stress, and we need to know a definition for stress. Stress is any circumstance, real or perceived, that threatens a person's well-being. Why do you think they put this perceived part? Well, if someone is feeling psychologically stressed about some threat, even if other people might say, hey, that threat isn't really serious, if the individual is perceiving it as serious, then that can stress them out. Okay, stress can be adaptive. You can run away from stress. It could save your life, or it can be maladaptive. Especially if it's prolonged. Prolonged stress has psychological effects that can really harm a person. It can also have physical effects that affects their health. What kind of things? If you have a persistent negative stressor, could lead to unhealthy behaviors like drinking or smoking. Could lead to stress hormones being increased, which again contributes to heart disease, suppression of your immune system, and autonomic nervous system effects like headaches and hypertension. So, what exactly happens with the stress response? A guy named Walter Cannon said that we have a fight or flight response. Nowadays, some psychologists will add the idea of freeze. So fight, flight, or freeze. When you have the fight or flight response, you have two hormones, epinephrine and norepinephrine, that are released and go out through your bloodstream. They increase your heart rate, your respiration rate, and mobilize sugar. They dull pain. So that's your body getting ready. If you see a bear on a hike in the woods, your body automatically gets ready to deal with that. What kind of things are stressful? Psychologists often break it down into three categories. The first category of stressful events are catastrophic events like earthquakes, combat stress. This can lead to depression, could lead to sleeplessness or anxiety. So, like, it could lead to PTSD, for instance, post-traumatic stress disorder. Significant life changes are the second type of stressor. If someone close to you dies, that's a big deal. Divorce is a big deal. Loss of a job. These can be major stressors. Sometimes even good things are stressful. Marriages, weddings are often very stressful events. There's a lot of planning and coordinating and decisions that have to be made. So it could be positive life changes or negative life changes. The third category of things that cause stress are daily hassles. You guys know what these are. Happens all the time. You're stuck in traffic. You can't find your phone. You've got a ton of homework to do. These are daily hassles. And if you have too much of them too long, you can really become stressed. When we get stressed, there's a pattern of a pattern of how our body reacts. So regardless of what the stressor is, if it's exam week, if it's an earthquake, if it's divorce, we all go through this pattern. And the pattern is that first we have an alarm reaction where we start to get stressed. Then we fight the stress, which is the resistance phase. And the third phase is exhaustion. So we tend to follow this pattern. Doesn't matter if it's exam week, if it's combat, if it's someone passing away. This tends to be a similar pattern. What's happening physically inside our body. I love this. This part is the most interesting thing to me about the stress unit. When our body produces those hormones to deal with stress, that has a negative effect of shutting down our immune system. There's things called lymphocytes and macrophages that fight disease in our body, but when we're stressed and we have those stress hormones, we get less of those immune disease-fighting cells in our body. So that's the link. What happens? It could be that you get a cold. Here's some research showing that the people that were most stressed out on this scale, the higher they were stressed out, the more likely they were to get colds. Another effect is that you have heart disease. Coronary heart disease can be linked to stress. If you have high blood pressure constantly, that can lead to a clogging of the vessels that nourish the heart muscle. So what kind of things affect whether you're stressed out or not? I don't know if you've noticed this, but I'm sure you have some friends, some that get stressed out more easily, some that are mellow that don't get stressed out. So what's the difference? I'm going to tell you about several differences. One is personality type. If you have type A people, and those are defined as competitive, hard-driving, impatient, verbally aggressive, and anger-prone people, those people are more likely to suffer from the ill effects of stress. They're more likely to have heart attacks, for instance. Type B personality, those folks are easygoing and relaxed and less likely to have heart attacks. Another factor is how optimistic or pessimistic you are. In one research with pessimistic adult men, they were twice as likely to develop heart disease over a 10-year period. Another factor is how you interpret the stress. Down here, it's talking about your appraisal. If you have a stressful event like a tough math test, some people say, yikes, this is beyond me. They view it as a threat. Some people view it as a challenge. I've got to apply all that I know. If you view a stressor as a challenge, you don't usually have the negative side effects. If you view a stressor as a threat, boom, you can have the negative side effects. Another issue is control. If you perceive that you have control of things in your life, then you tend to be less stressed than if you perceive that you don't have control. There was an experiment they did on rats where two groups of rats were getting shocked, and one group of rats could stop the shock and the other group could not stop the shock. And the ones that had control did not have negative effects from being shocked, but the ones who didn't have control developed ulcers, which is a side effect of being stressed. The final factor, actually that was the final factor. Just a couple more slides here. So what do we do with all this stress that we're having? Well, there's a group of people, a category of psychologists called behavioral medicine. And behavioral medicine are doctors and psychologists who are getting together and helping people learn to deal with their stress and finding out techniques that work and don't work and doing all kinds of research. As this says down here, mind and body interact. Everything psychological is simultaneously physiological. So the psychologists and the doctors are getting together to research and study and help people. Sometimes it's called health psychology. So that's the branch of psychology that's the same practically as behavioral medicine. So what have these people found out? What do they recommend? Well, there's all kinds of things you can do to relieve stress. We did a project earlier this year where we worked on it, working on being optimistic, having good social supports, friends and family, getting aerobic exercise 3 or 4 days a week, belonging to a faith community can really help, having a healthy diet can relieve stress, good sleep hygiene getting to sleep the same time every night, sleeping 8 hours or more, limiting social media, and either meditating or doing yoga, both of those very helpful. So there's tons of stuff you can do to relieve stress and deal with stress. And of all the things I think you should remember for your life going forward, I would want you to remember this slide the most, and that there are lots of things you can do if you're stressed. All right, that's the end of it today. See me in class if you have any questions. This should cover everything you need to know for the stress and health unit for the AP exam. Thanks for tuning in.